Welcome to Stories Junction. Let's begin today's story. My name's Ethan. A month before my twin brother Nathan's wedding, his fiancée, Lila, accused me of crossing a line with her. Nathan didn't call to talk it over. He didn't ask for my side. He just sent a single text, "Keep your distance." I replied, "Fine." That moment, that single word, set off a chain reaction that none of us could have predicted. To understand why it hit me so hard, you need to know what Nathan and I were like before Lila ever entered our lives. We weren't just twins. We were each other's shadow, two halves of the same soul. Growing up in the small town of Willow Creek, Oregon, we shared everything: friends, soccer games, late-night talks about dreams too big for our little world. We'd race bikes down the gravel roads, sneak into the old cinema for double features, and plan our escape to somewhere bigger, brighter. When we turned 18, we packed up our beat-up truck and moved to Denver together, chasing a fresh start. It was always us against the world, and the world gave us plenty to fight for. Our dad left when we were too young to remember his face. Mom raised us alone, working double shifts at the diner to keep us fed. She was our rock, but when we were 22, leukemia took her after a long, brutal fight. Hospital rooms, endless prescriptions, and nights watching her struggle to smile through the pain. That was our reality for years. When she passed, just weeks after our birthday, it left a void nothing could fill. We had an aunt and uncle in Portland, but they were distant, showing up for holidays out of obligation more than love. For Nathan and me, it was just us. No one else came close. So when Nathan met Lila, I was thrilled. He'd been raving about her for weeks, how she was sharp, ambitious, how she understood him in ways that felt almost magical. His eyes lit up when he talked about her, and I couldn't help but catch his excitement. I pictured her fitting into our lives like a missing piece, maybe even becoming the sister we never had. When I met her, she was charming, if a little guarded. Nothing stood out as wrong. She smiled, asked about my job as a mechanic, and seemed genuinely interested in our stories. I thought, this is good. This is right. But as months passed, things shifted. Nathan and I had always been inseparable, but suddenly he was harder to reach. At first, I brushed it off. He was in love, head over heels, and I didn't want to be the clingy brother. I was single, focused on fixing cars and saving for a place of my own, so I figured he deserved this happiness. But weeks turned into months, and the distance grew. Our late-night talks dwindled to quick texts. He'd cancel plans we'd made. Simple things like grabbing a beer or watching a game, without much explanation. One moment stands out. Every summer, we'd take a camping trip to the Rockies. It was our ritual, just the two of us, tents pitched under the stars, trading stories over a crackling fire. We'd planned this year's trip for months, mapping out trails, picking a spot by Lake Granby. But the night before we were set to leave, Nathan texted, "Hey, can't make it." Something came up. I called him, confused. "What's going on?" I asked. His voice was off, like he was reading from a script. "Just stuff. I'll explain later." He never did. A week later, over coffee, he let it slip. Lila had told him she'd feel left out if he went. She'd said it casually, but it was enough to make him cancel. I wasn't angry, disappointed, maybe, but I got it. Love changes priorities. Still, it stung that he hadn't been upfront. I started noticing a pattern. We'd make plans, agree on something, and then, after time with Lila, he'd back out or change his mind. It was like he was splitting into two versions of himself. The Nathan I'd always known and someone new, shaped by her. I didn't blame her, not yet. I just missed my brother. When Nathan told me he was going to propose, I was all in. We'd been through too much together for me to second-guess his happiness. Even though I'd started to notice things about Lila, her sharp comments, the way she'd steer conversations to what she wanted, I kept quiet. Love can make people act strange, I told myself. So I went with him to a jeweler in downtown Denver. We spent hours picking out a ring. Nathan wasn't flashy. He chose a simple band with a small emerald, something he said reminded him of Lila's eyes. He was so proud, grinning like a kid. I thought, this is it. He's building his future. But after he proposed, Lila's reaction threw me. Nathan told me later, in private, that she called the ring cute, but not quite her style. She wanted something custom, something that screamed unique. Nathan promised he'd upgrade it when he could afford it, but I could see the hurt in his eyes. I asked why he didn't push back, and he just said, "She deserves better." I let it go, but something inside me twisted. Then came a house. Lila insisted they buy a place before the wedding. Not rent, but own. Nathan's savings were decent, but his credit wasn't great. Neither was hers. That's when he came to me, sitting me down at my apartment with a serious look. "Ethan, I need a favor," he said. "This house, it's our future. It's what she wants, what we need." He asked me to co-sign their mortgage. It was a huge ask, tie my financial life to theirs. I had doubts, not about Nathan, but about her. The way she dismissed the ring, the way she seemed to call the shots, it didn't sit right. But he was my brother, my only family. So I said yes. That decision, that signature, changed everything. And when Lila's accusation came, it wasn't just a lie. It was a spark that lit a fuse I didn't even know was there. After I agreed to co-sign the mortgage for Nathan and Lila's house, things took a strange turn. Lila's behavior toward me shifted. I'd stop by their apartment to see Nathan, like I always had, and she'd act like I was an intruder. She'd barely look at me. Her responses clipped, her smile forced. Once, when I showed up with takeout for a game night we'd planned, she stayed in the kitchen, scrolling on her phone, not saying a word. I brushed it off at first. My visits were about Nathan, not her. I told myself she was just stressed about the wedding or the house hunt. But deep down, I knew something was off. Then came the text that shattered everything. It was a Thursday evening, and I was fixing a carburetor at the shop when my phone buzzed. Nathan's name lit up the screen, "Stay away from us." No explanation, no warning. Just those 4 words. I stared at them, my stomach twisting. Nathan and I had argued before. Petty stuff like who ate the last slice of pizza or whose turn it was to drive, but nothing like this. This felt final, like a door slamming shut. I called him immediately. When he answered, his voice was ice. "What's this about?" I asked, trying to keep my tone steady. That's when he dropped it. Lila said I'd been flirting with her, making her uncomfortable. She claimed I'd made suggestive comments when she was alone with me. I laughed, thinking it was a bad joke, but Nathan's silence told me he was serious. She said, "You crossed the line, Ethan," he said. "She's upset." I was floored. "You believe that?" I asked, my voice cracking. "You think I'd do that to you?" His response cut deeper than I expected. "Why would she lie?" I pressed him, my heart racing. "So you're taking her word over mine? Your twin? After everything we've been through?" He hesitated, then said, "You've never liked her. Maybe there's a reason." I couldn't believe it. He was twisting my concern. Every time I'd pointed out something off about Lila, every question I'd asked, into something ugly like I was jealous or worse. I tried to explain. "Nathan, I've never said a word to her that wasn't polite. You know me." But he cut me off. "Just stay away, Ethan." "I mean it." The line went dead. I stood there, the hum of the shop fading into a dull roar in my ears. It wasn't just the accusation that hurt. It was that Nathan, my other half, didn't even pause to consider my side. He'd chosen her without a second thought. That night, I barely slept. I replayed every interaction with Lila, searching for something I might have said or done to give her the wrong idea. Nothing added up. I'd been nothing but respectful, even when her demands about the ring or the house made my skin crawl. By morning, I was angry, not just at her, but at Nathan. How could he throw away our bond so easily? And then it hit me. My name was still on their mortgage application. I'd put my financial future on the line for them. And now I was being painted as the villain. I thought about what it meant to stay tied to them. If Lila was willing to lie about something this serious, what else was she capable of? I couldn't shake the image of her cold stare, the way she'd started treating me like I didn't belong. And Nathan, his blind trust in her, his refusal to hear me out, it felt like a betrayal deeper than anything I'd ever known. I made a decision then, one that felt like cutting off a limb. I called the bank and withdrew my co-signature. It wasn't easy. The loan officer asked if I was sure, explaining that without my backing, Nathan and Lila's application would likely fall through. I said I understood. When I hung up, my hands were shaking. I wasn't doing it to hurt Nathan. I was protecting myself. But I knew what it would mean. Sure enough, a few days later, I heard through a mutual friend that their loan was denied. They couldn't buy the house. And Nathan? He didn't call to ask why I'd pulled out. Instead, he told our friends I was sabotaging his future out of spite. The rumors spread like wildfire. Ethan's jealous, they said. He's trying to ruin Nathan's life. I didn't bother defending myself. What was the point? Nathan had made his choice, and it wasn't me. For the first time in our lives, we were strangers. I stopped reaching out. I stopped expecting him to show up at my door with an apology. I threw myself into work, fixing engines, keeping my hands busy so my mind wouldn't wander to the hole where my brother used to be. Weeks passed, then months. The silence between us grew heavier, like a weight I carried everywhere. I'd see something that reminded me of him, a dive bar we used to hit, a song from one of our old road trips, and it had hit me all over again. But I kept moving forward, or at least I tried. Then, one evening, as I was locking up the shop, my phone rang. Nathan's name flashed on the screen. I froze, my thumb hovering over the decline button. Why now? What could he possibly want after all this time? I answered, bracing myself. His voice was quiet, almost broken. Ethan, can we meet? I need to talk. Something in his tone stopped me from saying no. He sounded like the Nathan I used to know, not the one who'd pushed me away. Against my better judgment, I agreed. But as I hung up, a question gnawed at me. What had happened to make him reach out now? And was I ready to face whatever truth he was carrying? The day Nathan asked to meet, I felt like I was walking into a storm blind. We agreed on a quiet coffee shop in downtown Denver, one we used to hit after late-night shifts in our early 20s. As I drove there, my mind churned. Part of me wanted to hear him out, to find some way back to the brother I'd lost. But another part, the part still raw from his betrayal, braced for more pain. What could he say after months of silence, after believing Lila's lie over me? I parked, took a deep breath, and walked in. Nathan was already there, sitting in a corner booth, staring into a mug like it held answers. He looked rough, eyes sunken, shoulders slumped, like he hadn't slept in days. The Nathan I knew was always put together, quick with a laugh. This version was a stranger. When he saw me, he stood, hesitant, like he wasn't sure I'd actually show. Ethan, he said, voice low. Thanks for coming. I nodded, sliding into the booth. What's this about? I asked, keeping my tone neutral. I wasn't ready to let my guard down. He looked at me, eyes heavy with something I couldn't quite read. Guilt, maybe, or regret. Then he said it. I'm sorry. I was wrong. The words hung between us, simple but loaded. I waited, letting him fill the silence. He took a shaky breath. I shouldn't have believed Lila. I should have asked you, heard your side. I messed up, Ethan. Hearing him admit it cracked something in me. Not relief, not yet, but a small release of the pressure I'd been carrying. Why now? I asked. What changed? He leaned back, running a hand through his hair, and the story poured out. After I pulled my co-signature from a mortgage, their dream house slipped away. The bank rejected their application, and Nathan said Lila took it hard. She didn't yell or cry. She just got quiet, distant. He thought it was disappointment, but then she pivoted. She came to him one night with a new plan, a can't-miss investment opportunity. Some tech startup she'd heard about through a friend, promising huge returns. She said they could use the $40,000 they'd save for the house down payment, flip it into a fortune, and buy an even better place before the wedding. Nathan trusted her. He didn't ask for details, didn't dig into the company. She was so sure, he said, his voice bitter. She had spreadsheets, projections, even screenshots of supposed payouts. He handed over the money, every cent they'd scraped together. At first, Lila kept him updated, sending texts about dividends and growth. But then the updates slowed. When he asked questions, she'd snap, accusing him of doubting her. She'd say things like, "You're acting like I'm stealing from you," he told me. I didn't want to fight, so I backed off. I listened, my jaw tight. I wanted to say I'd seen this coming, that Lila's demands had always felt like red flags. But Nathan's face, raw, broken, kept me quiet. He went on. A month ago, he'd push harder, asking for proof, a contact name, a contract, anything. Lila exploded, calling him ungrateful, saying he was too small-minded for her vision. Then, one night, she didn't come home. Nathan woke up to an empty apartment. Her clothes, her laptop, even a watch he'd inherited from our mom, gone. No note, no explanation, just silence. He called the police, filed a report. They traced her phone to an airport, then nothing. The last update suggested she'd left the country. The investment was a sham. No startup, no returns, just a black hole where their savings used to be. Nathan sat there, staring at the table. I lost everything, he said. The money, the house, her, and you. His voice broke on that last word. I let her come between us, Ethan. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what to feel. Part of me wanted to reach across the table, tell him it was okay, that we'd figure it out. But another part, the part that remembered his text, his accusation, held me back. You believed her, I said, my voice steady but sharp. You thought I'd try to take her from you. After everything we've been through, Nathan, you didn't even ask me. He nodded, eyes down. I know. I don't know, blinded. She had me wrapped up in her world, and I didn't see it until it was too late. He looked up, pleading. I don't expect you to forgive me right now. I just needed you to know I see it now. I see her for what she was. The air felt thick, heavy with everything unsaid. I thought about Mom, how she'd always told us to stick together no matter what. I thought about the years we'd carried each other through grief, through starting over in a new city. And I thought about Lila, how she'd slipped into our lives like a blade, cutting us apart. What do you want from me, Nathan? I asked. He swallowed hard. I want my brother back, but I get it if you're not ready. I found something yesterday, something Lila left behind. It's why I called. I think you need to see it. My pulse quickened. What is it? He reached into his jacket, pulling out a small, crumpled envelope. I found this in her desk. It's addressed to you. He slid it across the table, his eyes locked on mine. I didn't open it, but I think it changes everything. I stared at the envelope, my name scrawled in Lila's sharp handwriting. My fingers itched to tear it open, but something, fear maybe, held me back. What could she possibly have to say to me? And why did it feel like opening it would unravel whatever was left of us? The envelope sat on the table between Nathan and me, a small, unassuming thing that felt like a live wire. My name, written in Lila's sharp, slanted handwriting, stared up at me. Nathan's eyes were fixed on it too, his hands clasped tight around his coffee mug. The bustle of the Denver coffee shop faded. Clinking cups, murmured conversations, the hiss of the espresso machine, all drowned out by the question pounding in my head. What did she want with me? Why didn't you open it? I asked, my voice quieter than I meant it to be. Nathan shook his head. It's yours, Ethan. And I didn't want to know what else she might have lied about until you were here. His honesty caught me off guard. The Nathan sitting across from me wasn't the one who'd sent that cold text months ago, telling me to stay away. This was my brother, raw and unguarded, like he used to be. But I wasn't ready to let go of the hurt. Not yet. I picked up the envelope, its edges worn like it had been handled too many times. My fingers hesitated at the seal. You sure about this? I asked, glancing at him. He nodded, his jaw tight. I tore it open, pulling out a single sheet of paper. The letter was short, but every word hit like a punch. Ethan, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I know what you think of me, and you're not wrong. I saw the way you looked at me, like you could see through me. You were right to doubt me. I used Nathan, and I'm not sorry. He was my way out, my ticket to something better. But you were a problem. You saw too much, asked too many questions. That's why I told him you came onto me. I needed you gone, out of his head, so he'd stop listening to you. It worked, didn't it? Don't try to find me. You won't. Lila. I read it twice, my hands steady but my chest tight. Nathan watched me, waiting. I slid the letter across the table without a word. He scanned it, his face paling with every line. When he finished, he didn't look up. He just sat there, the paper trembling in his hands. She planned it, he whispered. The whole time, she was playing me. I didn't say anything. What could I say? The letter confirmed what I'd suspected but never wanted to believe. Lila had orchestrated everything, from the accusation to the wedge she drove between us. She'd seen me as a threat, not because I wanted her, but because I knew something was off. And Nathan, my brother, had been her mark. I'm such an idiot, he said, his voice breaking. I let her turn me against you. I lost you, Ethan, for her. He looked up, eyes red. How do I fix this? I wanted to tell him it was okay, that we could go back to how things were. But the truth was I didn't know if we could. You believed her, I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. You didn't even ask me, Nathan. You just shut me out. I know, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I was so caught up in her, in this life I thought we were building. I didn't see what she was doing until it was too late. He paused, then added, There's more? I didn't tell you everything. My stomach dropped. What else? He reached into his jacket again, this time pulling out a small flash drive. I found this with a letter hidden in her desk. I haven't looked at it. I couldn't bring myself to. He slid it toward me, his hand shaking. I think it's got answers, maybe about the money, the investment, or I don't know, but I'm scared to find out alone. I stared at the flash drive, its sleek black surface catching the dim light of the coffee shop. Part of me wanted to smash it, to leave Lila's poison in the past. But another part, the part that needed to know why she'd torn us apart, couldn't let it go. You want me to look at it with you? I asked. He nodded. I need you, Ethan. I know I don't deserve it, but I need my brother. I took the flash drive, turning it over in my hand. It felt heavier than it should, like it held more than just data. Okay, I said finally. But we do this together, and we deal with whatever's on it. No more secrets. We left the coffee shop and headed to my apartment, a small place a few blocks away. The drive there was quiet, the weight of the letter and the flash drive filling the space between us. At my kitchen table, I plugged the drive into my laptop. Nathan sat beside me, his knee bouncing nervously. The screen lit up with a single folder, Lila's files. I clicked it open, revealing a mess of documents, spreadsheets, emails, and a few grainy photos. The first file I opened was a spreadsheet labeled Accounts. It listed transactions, dates, and sums, thousands of dollars moving to offshore accounts, none in Nathan's name. Another file, an email draft, mentioned a partner named Marcus, someone Lila had been coordinating with about the investment. My heart sank as I realized the depth of her scheme. She hadn't just taken Nathan's money. She'd been working with someone else, maybe a whole network. Then we opened a photo. It was Lila, smiling at a man I didn't recognize, standing in what looked like an airport terminal. The timestamp was recent, just days before she vanished. Nathan's face went white. That's him, he said, his voice hollow. She mentioned a Marcus once, said he was a business contact. I never thought. I clicked through more files, each one peeling back another layer of Lila's lies. But one document stopped me cold, a scanned copy of a marriage certificate. Not Nathan and Lila's. It was Lila, and this Marcus dated 2 years ago. She'd been married the whole time. Nathan's breath hitched. She was married? He whispered. This whole time, she was already someone else's wife. I closed the laptop, my mind racing. Lila hadn't just betrayed Nathan. She'd built a double life, maybe more. And now, with her gone and the money vanished, we were left with pieces of a puzzle that felt too big to solve. But one question burned brighter than the rest. Was she really gone for good, or was this just the start of something bigger? The marriage certificate on my laptop screen felt like a final blow, a confirmation that Lila's betrayal ran deeper than we'd imagined. Nathan stared at it, his face a mix of shock and exhaustion. The photo of Lila with Marcus, her supposed business contact, and now her husband, sat open in another window. The pieces were falling into place, each one uglier than the last. Lila hadn't just taken Nathan's money and run. She'd built a life of lies, with him as her pawn. And me? I'd been collateral damage. We sat at my kitchen table, the flash drive's contents spread across my laptop like a crime scene. The Denver night pressed against the windows, quiet except for the occasional hum of a passing car. Nathan hadn't spoken in minutes. Finally, he broke the silence. What do we do now, Ethan? His voice was raw, like he was holding himself together by a thread. I leaned back, rubbing my eyes. We take this to the police, I said. The spreadsheets, the emails, the certificate, everything. They need to know what she's done. Nathan nodded, but his expression was distant, like he was still processing the scale of her deception. I couldn't blame him. Losing $40,000, his dream of a home, and the woman he loved was bad enough. Finding out she was married to someone else? That was a wound that wouldn't heal easily. The next morning, we went to the police station. The officer who took our statement was kind but skeptical, jotting down notes as we explained Lila's disappearance, the fake investment, and the flash drive's contents. "We'll look into it," she said, copying the files onto a secure drive. "But if she's left the country, it's complicated. Offshore accounts, false identities. This sounds like a professional job." She promised to follow up, but her tone didn't inspire confidence. As we left, Nathan muttered, "She's gone, isn't she? Really gone?" I didn't answer. I didn't know how to. Instead, I suggested we grab a drink, somewhere quiet where we could talk without the weight of police reports hanging over us. We ended up at a dive bar near my apartment, the kind of place we used to haunt in our early days in Denver. Over cheap beers, Nathan opened up. "I keep thinking about Mom," he said. She'd have seen through Lila in a second. She always knew when someone wasn't right. I nodded, picturing Mom's sharp eyes, the way she'd size up a stranger with a single glance. "She'd have told you to run," I said, managing a small smile. Nathan laughed, a hollow sound. "Yeah, and I'd have ignored her. Like I ignored you." He looked at me, his eyes steady. "I'm sorry, Ethan. I keep saying it, but I mean it. I let her twist everything, and I lost you because of it." I took a sip of my beer, letting his words settle. The hurt was still there, a dull ache in my chest, but it wasn't as sharp as it had been. "You didn't lose me," I said finally. "I'm here, aren't I?" It wasn't forgiveness, not exactly, but it was a start. We clinked our bottles, a silent promise to rebuild what had been broken. Over the next few weeks, we fell into a new rhythm. Nathan moved into my spare room while he got back on his feet. His savings were gone, and the emotional toll left him quieter, more thoughtful. We didn't talk about Lila every day, but her shadow lingered. The police investigation dragged on, with no real leads. The offshore accounts were untraceable, and Marcus, whoever he was, seemed to have vanished alongside her. It was like Lila had erased herself from existence. One night, as we were watching a game on my beat-up couch, Nathan turned to me. "You ever think about what you'd say to her if you saw her again?" I thought about the letter, her cold admission that she'd used him, that she'd lied to push me away. I'd ask her why, I said. "Not for you, not for me. Just why she thought she could play with people's lives like that." Nathan nodded, but didn't reply. I could tell he was still grappling with his own questions. Then, a month later, something unexpected happened. I got a call from the police. They'd found a lead, not on Lila, but on Marcus. His name had popped up in a fraud case in Seattle, tied to a similar scam. "He's not in custody," the officer said, "but we're closing in. If he's working with your brother's ex, we might get answers." I told Nathan, and for the first time in weeks, I saw a spark in his eyes. Not hope, exactly, but a need for closure. That night, we made a plan. If the police found Marcus, we'd push for every detail. Where Lila went, what she did with the money, how long she'd been planning it. But more than that, we decided to move forward. Nathan started looking for a new job, something to rebuild his savings. I helped him update his resume, even drove him to an interview at a construction firm. Slowly, the brother I knew started coming back. Not the same, but close enough to feel like home. As I sit here now, I've learned a few things, lessons carved out of this mess. First, trust is fragile, but it's not unbreakable. Nathan and I are proof of that. Second, your gut is rarely wrong. I saw Lila's cracks early on, and I should have spoken up louder, even if it cost me. And finally, family, real family, doesn't walk away no matter how bad it gets. Nathan and I aren't done healing, but we're walking the same road again, side by side. The police haven't found Lila yet, and maybe they never will. But last week, a postcard arrived at my apartment. No return address, postmarked from somewhere in South America. It had one line, in that same sharp handwriting, "You're tougher than I thought." My blood ran cold. I haven't shown it to Nathan yet. I don't know if I will. But one thing's clear, Lila's not done with us, and whatever game she's playing, it's far from over.